Kind of, sort of. And we are live. We are working on some lighting situations as we speak, but that's cool. It's all good.
Continue. I'm going to fix the light.
Okay. I want to welcome back to the show who's technically, welcome to the first ever episode of The Late Show. And The Late Show is a show that usually takes place sometime around 10 p.m., where we meet with my buddy Rod Jean Charles, who's still struggling with some lighting issues here. But it's all good. And all will be well. So I've had Rod on several times before, and he's a regular part of the show. And I'm just sort of enjoying right now watching him try to fix these lights. So
I'm here. Sorry,
right.
It's sunlight.
That's
California sunlight, everybody. It's probably 10 o'clock on the East Coast, but it's only 7 o'clock here. So
yeah,
can't help it.
I hear you. No big deal. No big deal, man. So I saw this video one time, and it was saying that this one actor who I won't bother to name was listing who he felt were the top 3 actors in Hollywood. And the number 3 guy he listed, he sort of rated them, but he said the number 3 guy was Johnny Depp. But he said Depp was erratic because, sometimes he turns in a good performance and sometimes he turns in it's a crap movie, or, he won't pick a movie that, does real well. And so, it gets kind of panned, so on and so forth.
Johnny Depp is up there on my list too.
Yeah, well, he top 3. So even though he had his criticisms of him, he was in the top 3, according to this guy. He said number 2 is DiCaprio. For all the obvious reasons, it's DiCaprio. And DiCaprio has been on top for about 25 years now.
Of course.
But he said the number 1 guy in all of Hollywood was Denzel Washington. And he said that Denzel Washington was the destination. That after more than 30 years, he's still getting the A-list roles. He couldn't think of a bad performance that this guy had ever turned in. After 3 decades, the ladies still love him. He's still
that's a fact.
Yeah, he's still turning out kick-ass movie after kick-ass movie after kick-ass movie. He said that this was where you wanted to be. So I'm inclined to agree with that, and I think this might be the first Denzel Washington movie we've covered so far on the show, and I'm real happy about that. To get into it tonight with you about what is the second of 2 Hughes Brothers movies that we're covering this week. On Monday, I covered on my own From Hell, which is the Hughes Brothers depiction with Johnny Depp about the Jack the Ripper murders at the end of the 19th century. And now today, we're going at it with the next movie that they did. They didn't do another movie for 9 years. From Hell was in 2001, and the Hughes Brothers didn't collaborate again for a production until 2010 in this movie, The Book of Eli. So are you ready?
I'm ready to go.
All right, brother. Now, the Hughes brothers and Antoine Fuqua and, these sorts of characters, these are not like Tim Burton-style directors. They turn out some gritty, gruesome stuff. And this movie is really no exception. But it is just a fantastic movie. I'm not sure that it exactly falls into the horror category, although there are some horrible things that happen. I'm not sure exactly that it even fits into sci-fi. It's kind of this post-apocalyptic, action thriller of sorts. Yeah, it's like a neo-western or something like that. But when you suggested it, I had come up with another short list. I was happy to watch this, and I just happened to catch it yesterday for the first time in about a year. And I was just, I couldn't have been more pleased to sit down and watch this. It's really a great flick.
Some great performances in there. Gary Oldman, of course, Denzel blows me away. The rest of the cast is okay. This wasn't my favorite Denzel movie.
No.
And I'm not sure if it wasn't because of Denzel. Maybe it's because the story was kind of, the plot for me has some holes in it, but the surprise at the end is what really brought everything together. Prior to that, I remember watching the first time. I wasn't really enjoying this at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, why is it good? Let's talk about that. What was it that was what was getting on your nerves?
It wasn't really much getting on my nerves. It felt like a lot of it was drawn out. I want to know more of the story about I wish I knew more about the background of Denzel's character, and how he got there. I think a prequel to this would be incredible.
That would be interesting. You'd have a hard time finding somebody to play a young Denzel.
Of course, I can do it, but still.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, you could do it. Yeah, I mean, All right. Well, maybe we don't have to look that hard. All right. Yeah. So if you're listening right now, Mr. Washington,
I'm right here
on the right of the screen. Yeah, Rod. He's definitely ready to go. He's out there, sir.
But it's just a couple things that I look back on it. It was kind of the whole blind thing, and everything was kind of not as clear to me. And
well, I think what you've got here, and this is what it is to me. He is what Clint Eastwood perfected, which is the man with no name.
Yeah.
And so he's the neo-West. That's exactly what, as you described it, as a Western. But he's the post-apocalyptic man with no name. He just kind of rolls into town. I'm still not sure at the end, by the time the movie was over, that his name was actually Eli. All he ever really said, all he ever did in relation to his name was open a pack. His backpack, and it said
Eli on the pack.
Yeah, it goes, "Hello, my name is Eli." I mean, that looked like a little kid's backpack almost.
Yeah,
something you would give a child that goes to school. So they don't lose their name is like stitched in on it. So as far as I was concerned, it really did remind me of that Eastwood type of theme. Where the guy rolls into town, you don't know who he is, but Lord help you if you mess with this guy. Which invariably somebody always does, and finds out the hard way really fast that you've made a terrible mistake.
Don't touch me.
He's got this. I mean, I love the use of color in the very beginning. I mean, you've got what looks like ash still falling on the ground. He's a scavenger of sorts. I mean, there's an opening scene where there's one of those hairless cats, and it's eating a dead person. It's eating a corpse, and he kills the cat. To have a little meat, that sort of things. He's definitely a scavenger. I love the use of color though in the background, where everything has just kind of been bleached.
Kind of a black-white kind of effect.
Almost, yeah, kind of, sort of. Yeah. I had recently, or just yesterday, I was watching something where they talked about when an underwater ecosystem, like a coral system, which is usually vibrant and full of color, is stressed or harmed, it takes on a bleached kind of coloration to it. It loses all of its, sort of beauty, and that's kind of, I mean, the very later part in that day, here I am watching this, and I'm like, wow, this is exactly what I saw on Nat Geo just a couple of hours ago. I guess there's some they call it the flash, some sort of apocalyptic, explosion that's happened, and it said it ripped a hole in the sky. So I guess all the protection that particular layers, ozone or whatever, have been ripped away, and the sun has just come in and like cooked everything.
Yeah, the first 20 minutes of it with the cinematography was incredible. The
Yeah.
images, the images, the setup of the whole thing was very eerie, was very dark in a way. You know what I mean?
Well,
And I love that.
it kind of set the tone for who he was.
Yes.
I mean, because you had about 15 minutes, maybe 20, to see clearly who this man was. That he was someone who was just out there surviving. He had a few essentials to stay alive, some weapons. I think in the beginning, he goes into a house. He finds a corpse who's hung himself, and he immediately takes the guy's shoes. So
Yes.
he's doing what he has to do to survive. But what I thought was particularly significant was that at the end of the day, when he was sleeping, before he turned into bed, he pulled out like some wet naps and like cleaned himself.
It washed himself with wet naps. Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying. It told me that he's got some sort of ethos going. He hasn't lost himself. In this sort of new world.
He's learned to survive in this new world, as opposed to a lot of people who are just. He's learned to survive by himself alone, and what he needs to do to survive.
Yeah, but he's also kept his humanity.
Yeah.
He's kept his humanity, because I think immediately within that 20 minutes, he runs into a group of scavengers and hijackers who try to kill him. Just on general principle, because that's what people are doing to each other. They're murdering.
They're trying to. The thing about it, she said they weren't trying to kill him because of what he had. They're trying to kill him because he's food. At this point, everybody is mostly cannibals.
Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right.
They were on their own survival mode.
Yeah, and that was. I don't know if you ever saw. Cormac McCarthy's The Road with Viggo Mortensen. In that particular apocalypse, it's a very bleak movie. It's a humorless movie. There's no happy ending in that movie, but that is the great fear. It's about 10 years into an apocalyptic event, and people, everything is dead, and people are just cannibalizing each other. So that's the situation that we find ourselves in with this story. We have a man who clearly can take care of himself and is trying to make his way, through the world. And, the rest of the world seems to have mostly gone to hell.
Yeah, and he's on this mission.
Yeah, he's on this mission. And then you meet Gary Oldman. And go ahead.
Gary he blew my mind in this. Gary is a few character actors that have really pulled me in, and as soon as you saw him, he's just pulling me in the whole time. Like I said, I love him and Denzel's performance.
Yeah, this is
a lot of anything else.
I think this is an underrated performance from Gary Oldman, because I'm not sure that this was a huge box office hit. And it was I think this was right before Gary Oldman really rocketed into Oscar contention with lots of things.
Mm-hmm.
He's in sort of this action movie, and but he's so good, and he's so understated, and the fact that he's sitting there in the opening scene reading a book on Mussolini, 30 years into the apocalypse tells you immediately, what type of person Gary Oldman is.
He gets rid of all the books that they bring to him. He's like, get rid of these, but he keeps the Mussolini book he has there reading. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's looking for specific types of books, and he's looking for one book in particular, which we find out, of course, is a Bible. And it turns out that all the Bibles in the world seems to have been destroyed for one reason or another. It's never exactly explained why that is the case, but these are sort of his obsessions in collecting these books that sort of he can use to weaponize and take control, because he's got control of this little small town, and he's got muscle, which he has leadership of in the form of Ray Stevenson. I love Ray Stevenson. He's one of my favorite character actors going today. I remember Ray Stevenson, oh God, it must be easily 20 years ago, from one of the best HBO productions, in my opinion, of all time, Rome, where he played Titus Pullo. Have you ever seen Rome?
A long time ago, yeah. I've seen it once.
It's one of my all-time favorite. I own it on DVD. Ray Stevenson played the Punisher once in Punisher Warzone, before any of the MCU came to pass, and it was a pretty good interpretation. He's also now in the MCU, or he was playing Volstagg in any of the Thor movies. So when I saw Ray Stevenson, I'm like, oh wow, you've just got like such an assembly here. And
they have a pretty good ensemble. In this whole cast.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, that is anybody in this movie is, kind of a name actor that you appreciate. You're like, oh, he's in this, or oh, she's in this. This is like really fantastic. Of all people, you've got Tom Waits playing the engineer in the town, who just, is being tasked with like charging. Apparently, Denzel Washington also has like an iPod, or something like that, and he needs to have it charged.
I wish I knew what he was listening to. I wish this knew what he was going through, and then added to the soundtrack of the movie. It's like you see him listening to it, you see Mia Klumis, whatever, listen to it in the end, but you never know. It just made me think that. I mean, I think you do at one time hear some.
He's playing Al Green.
Al Green, yeah.
He's playing Al Green. How can you mend a broken heart?
Yeah.
I mean, in the apocalypse, if Al Green has still survived, you're not going to see me complaining about that. I'm happy to listen to some Al Green anytime, man. Al Green is the king. So, but Tom Waits. I mean, just this random. Holy shit! It's Tom Waits. Tom Waits is the engineer who does. For his bit. He has a pretty entertaining performance. Just because you're just kind of blown away that it's Tom Waits. But we get back to the main story, and we see that Gary Oldman is essentially looking for a Bible that he can weaponize to take control of more towns. He seized the water sources. In the remaining areas, and everything that he has is kind of held together by force. He's like a low-level, warlord or chieftain or something like that.
That's one of the plots that I didn't understand. The whole thing. I don't understand why he wanted the Bible, but if nobody around him or in the coming towns could read, he can stick a comic book with a cross on it and tell people it's the Bible.
Well, I think that that wouldn't exactly work. And
they made it seem like everyone else in town was so. Anybody who's younger than 30 or younger, couldn't read at all, didn't know anything at all. So they would basically follow him and his word because he's a scholar, because he's the scholar of the time. No, go ahead.
No, I think that would work to a certain extent to the. I mean, it's hardly a foolproof plan, but I think that it would work to the extent of what he already had in his possession. To expand past that, I think he would actually need passages and have to do some research and, these sorts of things, which is knowledge that he did not have. I think he had the strategies, but I think he would have needed the book. I mean, it's hard to just sit there and make up passages out of the Bible when, nothing would really duplicate, the original. The best way to go forward would be to find a copy and then to, contribute from there. I mean, he had already seized control of that town, and he had control of the water, and he had control of the women, and he had control of the muscle. So he already had all those things without. But I think his plans were much larger than that.
Yeah. I think it would have been better. It would have been better if the people of this time knew of the Bible and knew that the Bible at one time existed. But there was, for some reason, there wasn't a copy of it, and he comes up upon a copy instead of having, him as the only one that knows of the Bible, knows what it's about.
Well, he wasn't the only one. He wasn't the only one that knew about it. I mean, Ray Stevenson knew what it was. Jennifer Beals, she knew what it was.
Anybody older than 30, or
anybody older than 30, or anybody around 40. 40 or more knew what it was. It's just that no one had heard of it in so long. And, I think at some point he's explaining, I think Denzel has explained it to Mila Kunis that maybe that's why the war started to begin with. I don't know, maybe it was some sort of, religious strife or something like that.
Revelations.
After the war happened, then, people just went out of their way to burn all the Bibles for some reason, which is a little odd. It is an odd sort of bent, and that, none of the other religious, books were mentioned or anything like that. But, it's 2010 and, no one's going to make a movie about burning Qurans, so you can only burn Bibles, that's Hollywood for you. But we've also got some really entertainment. We've got Jennifer Beals. I hadn't seen Jennifer Beals in a long
since Flashdance.
Probably the last time I had seen her after this. She was in a Amazon series based on that Liam Neeson movie Taken, and she was really good in that. And then, of course, she plays a blind woman in the movie. Who's sort of Gary Oldman's, she's not his girlfriend, she's just kind of his concubine. She's kind of his concubine. She's blind, and like a lot of people from The Flash, and, I guess, that's how she survives. He seems to treat her with, some decency when it's convenient to him. And at other times, he just, he has no problem with laying hands on her. And then she's got a daughter, Mila Kunis, who is, a little savvy, but also, still a kid, that Gary Oldman is more than willing to use her as some sort of prostitute to, convince Denzel to stay in town after he decimates like 5 or 6 guys in Oldman's militia.
The Virgin Mary of the movie.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. She's kind of the Madonna. She's a kid. I mean, she's a kid. She probably plays somebody who's like 16 or 17, somewhere between, 16 and 19 or something like that. So, she's still a kid. And, you kind of can sense that about her, and that her mother's protective of her. But because, Gary Oldman wants, Denzel on his side as part of his militia, he's more than happy to throw his concubine's daughter, at a complete stranger.
Yeah, that's how he keeps control of her. Keeps control of Jennifer Beals because he has this power over his daughter, and preventing her from being raped, from being a prostitute, or just because she's just working at the bar at that time.
Yeah, and in a relatively unharassed way.
Yes.
Not to mention she's attracted the attention of Ray Stevenson.
Yes.
So it sort of becomes this story about, how should we put this? It's about, what we find out is that Denzel Washington actually owns perhaps the last remaining Bible in the world.
Good versus evil. The basic good.
And basically, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, the basic good versus evil. That's what I was going to say. It's Gary Oldman represents the devil in this movie. Mila Kunis is a Virgin Mary. Denzel Washington is Christ-like. When it comes to the whole foundation of it, that's how I saw it.
You do get the sense that Denzel Washington's kind of a blessed character in this.
Yeah.
At one point there's a gunfight, and I think Ray Stevenson tries to shoot him several times, and the bullets don't seem to affect him.
About 10 or 20 people try to shoot at him, and it misses him. And he's walking, and he keep going by him until he finally turns around. Yeah,
and Ray Stevenson actually puts the gun down.
Yeah.
Because he's just like, what the hell is going on here? Like, I'm missing because I remember the first time he tries to shoot him, he looks at the gun like some, the sight is bent or something like that, and it turns into this huge gunfight, and you can't get this guy. It's a hell of a story. That's a decent concept actually. The last Bible on earth is held by this one man, and the other man is at the. Yeah, you're right. There is a very clear case of good versus evil, where the one man, is saying basically, I know what its power is. It's a weapon.
Yes.
That's his intention for using the Bible. Exploiting the power within the verses, weaponizing it against people so he can seize control. And the one man who owns it is as much a polar opposite, so sort of almost, saint-like, or angelic character who won't hesitate to kill you, if you prevent him from getting to where he needs to go, which he says, a voice has told him to go west. That's he's sort of completely operating on faith.
And that's what it is. That's what I think the premise of is. Gary Oldman's character has faith that this will give him power. If he has it, he can use it for evil to control everybody. Whereas Denzel's character is about bringing this to the world, bringing this to the only known sanctuary or library left in this country or in the world, and they could share it with and help restore the world with its Bible.
I don't think, and we just disagree, and that's fine. I don't think that Gary Oldman has any faith at all. I just think he wants it as a tool. I think he wants it as a tool because he understands history, and he understands how throughout history religious texts have been used to, seize power and to conquer and to exploit and to do all the least parts of the least pure or the least godlike parts of history. He wants to bring that sort of era back, and fill the vacuum, that's currently in society. I don't even think that Denzel knows where he's going. I just think he knows to go west. I don't think he knew that library was there. I just think, he eventually makes it out there. And unfortunately, he's well on his way to dying by the time he arrives.
And that's what the thing is. He knew to go west, but how did he know actually where to go? Especially when he got to the bridge.
Well, he didn't. And that's the point, because he couldn't have gotten in the car with Mila Kunis, and known he didn't give her directions on where to drive. They just kept on going. So the entire journey on his part is this one of faith. But because he seems to be this blessed character, God. Continually shows him, that he's on the right path. And conversely, unfortunately, he does get shot by Gary Oldman at some point in the movie. My question is Gary Oldman was successful up until the point where he shot Denzel Washington, and then everything else after that sort of fell apart.
That's the thing that got me. If after everything that Denzel did to him, killed all these people, do all this, he just shoots him in the stomach.
Yeah, he leaves him to suffer.
And then he leaves him to suffer, where I would assume, if I was Gary Oldman's character, I want to get rid of this guy. Just shoot him in the head. Get rid of him.
He left him there to suffer, and he asked him.
But he did like him. He did like him in a way. He said throughout the whole time, I like this guy. I enjoy this guy. There's something about him. And maybe that's the reason why he let him suffer and bleed out.
Denzel's Eli, the Eli character is a hardcore character. He's got purity of purpose. He is a badass. He's not deterred. He's not deterred. He's not swayed. And all of the things that in this world would have worked on anybody else that Gary Oldman knows, have zero effect. He can't be tempted. So he has this begrudging respect for him, and he has to kill him, or he has to at least get the book from him. But he sort of he does have this begrudging respect. So it's a hell of a thing. It's
funny. Denzel's only weakness becomes a woman.
Yeah, but it's also more of a stewardship type of relationship. Is it intimate? Yes, but it's not in any sort of way like a romantic type of relationship. Yeah. It's almost like a father-daughter, kind of relationship. You know, he sees her very much as a child. And I think if it had been anybody else in that world or any other character in that movie, they would have been trying. He would have been trying to hook up, like really fast. But he just sort of looked over her,
Yes.
and he was only interested in protecting her, and doing that sort of thing. In fact, on numerous
Well, he
occasions,
was forced to protect her. He was forced to because she wouldn't give up by following him.
Right, and I was just going to say, his initial reaction was to lock her in one of the sheds and have her wait to get picked up by Gary Oldman's crew again. Because he didn't want to take her on the road, and he has to stop her from getting gang raped at one point. That's how he, sort of stumbles back into her again. I guess he doubled back to check around or whatever, and she had gotten away, and the whole thing just kind of got away from her.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's a moral person who just, he isn't swayed, by any of the, the more worldly temptations. His entire purpose is to, get west. And see what God has for him, waiting for him out there. I one of the also more interesting and I thought comical things was Michael Gambon.
They're great. I forgot about them. They were
Dumbledore as a cannibal, half of a cannibal married couple. Which actually provided about 15 or 20 minutes of comic relief of sorts.
Yeah.
When they start singing that song, you can
ring my bell. Yeah, ring my bell. I'm like,
we're like, okay,
like
whatever.
This is a classic. I can see somebody just.
Yeah, I thought they were going to play some Benny Goodman or something like that. No, she's going to ring my bell. Okay. If that's Dumbledore's a cannibal and his wife is playing Ring My Bell. Okay, no problem. So, I mean, the Hughes brothers have created this, I think, a very respectable apocalyptic movie. I think that, the timing of this movie in terms of its review and rating was a little rough because, I mean, let's face it, there are a lot of apocalyptic movies out there.
Especially during that time, a lot of it was coming out.
Yeah, but I mean, we've had apocalyptic movies going all the way back to what, Mad Max?
Yeah, Mad Max was the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, you're looking at about 30 years of apocalyptic movies, and they're still making them today. So it can be hard to separate one from the other, these sorts of things. I remember watching this about a year ago, though, and, more than a year ago, because I was still overseas at the time. And, I had some friends say, wow, this is really appropriate for what's going on today because, everything was so bad and you weren't sure which direction things were going to go back then.
That's true.
It's go ahead.
No, I was thinking okay, forget it. I was thinking this is 10 years after 2K,
Y2K.
Y2K, yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember that. Oh God, Y2K. Yeah. Everything was supposed to return to zero.
Yeah, exactly. I thought this was around that time, but this came out 10 years after. But I can see that it may be somehow inspiring to these post-apocalyptic movies to come out.
It's among the better. It's among the better of them. Because a lot of post-apocalyptic movies are action films.
Yeah.
They're action films. They're usually not dramas.
A lot of savages, a lot of killing and blood.
Yeah, a lot of killing and bloodletting, and people are just they go to zero. But this is a good flick. If you get a chance, let's see. There's a show on Netflix called Jericho.
Yes, I heard of Jericho.
That's a good show with Skeet Ulrich. And it went about a season and a half. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the second season, it got canceled. So it ends on like this really weird episode cliffhanger. And then it just ends. But it's about
what happens with a lot of Netflix shows. It just frustrates me.
Well, it starts out with this. I mean, it's these people that live in this small town, almost like where I'm here now. And this nondescript event happens. And all the people in the small town kind of get cut off from the rest of the world. And it's about how they, are trying to understand this and kind of survive it, because it's clear that something very bad has happened. And, about how some people are trying to just, sort of maintain the system, because the system is what sustains people. And then almost, immediately how some people, start wanting to change things like right away, and some people just want to grab, power and control of things like right away. It's an interesting movie. And it's an interesting TV show. But unfortunately, like I said, in the middle of the second season, it just ended. And you're like, what? Like 6 seasons into like the second season. But I mean, there are just so many apocalyptic movies out there. It's hard to keep up. But at the same time, that brings me back to my original point, which is that
I was waiting for some undead thing to come and pop up.
Yeah, something. I was going to say, I was just about to open my mouth and say that I've gotten tired of the zombie apocalypse. And then I did just see Zack Snyder's on Netflix, The Army of the Dead, the one with Dave Bautista.
Yeah, I've been meaning to see that, and you did recommend that, and I haven't seen it yet.
It's okay. The Tomorrow War was better. With Chris Pratt, that you recommended, was better than Army of the Dead. I would have rather seen that. But something? I recently saw it, and I'm falling, I should have seen this because it's about 5 years old. Maybe the best zombie apocalypse movie I've ever seen. It's a Korean film, and it's on Hulu. It's called Train to Busan. Oh, man. That's just it's just an amazing movie, not just an amazing zombie movie, but it's just an amazing movie. Asians and Northern Europeans are making really good horror nowadays. Maybe one day we'll cover that or something like that.
That'd be cool. I would love to experience a different type of horror.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to cover Train to Busan then.
I thought you were gonna mention. I know you were, but I was thinking that Will Smith post-apocalyptic movie.
No, I Am Legend. No,
I Am Legend.
No, I'm not mentioning it. You know what I did like? I do like his movie I, Robot.
I, Robot.
I like I, Robot.
I am an I Am Legend fan. I did enjoy that movie, but I don't know. Will Smith helps me turn my mind off. I can just watch him and laugh.
Yeah, I mean, he never makes anything ultra serious, or anything like that. I didn't. I liked it the first time I saw it. But I could only watch it once, and then I just I don't have any interest. Now, it's funny I mentioned that because I actually
Part 2's coming out.
You're shitting me.
I'm dead serious. Part 2's coming out. I just read it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
I'm Legend 2.
Well, here's the thing. I own that. I actually own it on Blu-ray as part of a 2-pack with the Book of Eli. I got it. Yeah, it was like one of those $5 buy both Blu-rays for $5, that sort of thing. And there's an alternate ending in I Am Legend where I believe he survives.
Yeah.
Yeah, he survives. He and the woman, they get out and they go up to that new place together. So, it's not the theatrical ending where, he buys it in the end. He actually survives it and they make it together. Although, yeah, I don't really have any interest. I'm so sick of people making sequels and remakes and reboots. I was saying this to someone earlier. This is why nothing original gets made, because it's like a clogged artery. The artery is so clogged with just retreaded material that none of the new blood can get through. And
people are fresh out of ideas.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that, but I think whoever these dumbasses are in the offices are greenlighting this shit. Because I see, and you have to look for it a little bit. It's more on the independent theater, the independent movie circuit. Like I said, in the Hulus, you won't see these types of movies on HBO or, I guess HBO, Netflix. Netflix's horror really isn't that great. But if you watch independent horror that's coming out of Hulu from different parts of the world, like Ireland or Wales or the UK, I know some really good French horror that I'm talking about. This Korean horror that I was just explaining to you. Even some of the Russian stuff that's coming. There's really good horror. I mean, in English language horror. that's coming out nowadays, but it's completely on the indie circuit. The big ticket companies are only retreading this bullshit. Just like they keep rebooting Marvel characters or DC characters. They keep bringing Batman out every 3 years. It's another new person playing Batman.
It's all about the finances. It's all about making the money. That's all they want to do.
And they're
not about investing into art, into good quality movies, whatever they may be.
No, and they just are the same repetitive themes over and over and over again. Over content, or over a decent story, or anything like that. As long as you push the right buttons, or it's annoying. It's annoying, but there is good stuff out there. You just have to look for it a little bit, and luckily I know where to look. I'll tell you what. Let's set that up for Train to Busan, though. Maybe in a couple of weeks.
I'm set. I'm definitely set for seeing something foreign and horror. I've never seen a foreign horror movie.
Okay, let me make sure that it's still on Hulu, and we'll set it up. I think, I just want to say real quick at the end, if you haven't seen this, it's worth seeing. It's on HBO right now. This is a movie that's worth seeing at the end. I won't leave every detail exposed. But
are you talking about Book of Eli again?
Yeah, we're back to Book of Eli.
Okay.
Just for a split second, but I'm just going to leave it there. I think, unless you had something to add, that this is a pretty good place to end it.
No. I mean, I know you don't want to give away the ending, but the whole thing about the ending makes you look back at the movie and the little idiosyncrasies, little things he does. You know what I mean?
It's a good script. The guy who wrote the script was the guy who wrote Rogue One, and a couple of other decent films. So this is a good writer. This is a good writer. It's good direction. It's good performances. It's not a perfect movie or anything like that, but it's
not a perfect movie.
Stuff.
It was just something was missing for me. I don't know what. Maybe it was something in the writing. Maybe it was just too drawn out. There's something about it that just I didn't click with and I usually click with any Denzel movie. The Denzel movie, I'm like drooling at the mouth and like in front of the TV, in front of the screen, just like eyes wide open. But this one just didn't do it for me. I think it was more the script. Like I said, the ensemble was a great ensemble, some great character acting in there. But yeah, I think it was more the script is there's some holes in it that I question.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I would are you saying that it's not worth checking out?
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. It's worth checking out. Okay. I mean, if you look at the ratings, it was a 46 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I never listened to Rotten Tomatoes or any of those assholes. I never listened to any of those people.
Yeah, like 5 out of 10 liked it or something. You have to. I think. I mean, I enjoyed it. When I first time I saw it, I was like, okay, until the ending, and then I'm like, oh, okay. Then it kind of justified everything and made me feel like, okay, I can see where it went and why it went this way and why he was doing what he was doing. But up until then, you want something that'll pull you in and get you. Nothing really got me.
I thought I was fussy, man. This movie kind of got me right from the get-go.
Like I said, the cinematography in the beginning pulled me in. I love the cinematography. No,
I mean the story.
What I was watching and stuff, but yeah.
I mean the story. I mean, I thought it was a great story too. But hey, not everybody. All right, I think that's a pretty good place to close it up. Yeah, you think?
Definitely.
Okay. If you see this video, like the video, please. If you consider it worthwhile, consider subscribing to the channel. I'd appreciate it. Roderick, pleasure as always, my brother. I love you.
All love, man. All love.
Let's get back together again in a couple of weeks. We'll set up for Train to Busan, or at least if it's still on Hulu. If not, let's do something indie next time.
All right, perfect.
And I'll introduce you to some real some good indie horror. It was a little. That's I think as close as we got was Underwater. But there's some really good indie stuff out there, and let's get you checking it out. All right, everybody, stick around right after the outro, and thanks everybody. We'll be back tomorrow with Hammer Time as we cover Oliver Reed's 1961 classic, directed by Terence Fisher, The Curse of the Werewolf. Good night, everybody.